everyone, this is Dawn. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make a Mother's Day card using the stamp set from Close to My Heart called Poppy Sentiments, and this is available just for a few more days. And then I'm also going to use the May stamp of the month called Time to Celebrate. The papers I'm going to use are the UV coated cardstock from Blue Skies and the new mix-in papers from the May-June catalog. Okay, so let's get started. I'm using white daisy cardstock and sponge daubers. I'm going to use a variety of colors of inks, and I'm just kind of playing around and seeing what I like. So I'm going to start out with lemonade, smoothie, and candy apple. So I've got my stamp mounted on my block, and the best way with these solid stamps to work with them is to make sure you can see through everything and make sure that there aren't any bubbles when you mount your stamp onto your block. So I'm using my sponge dauber, and I'm taking some smoothie and just daubing it down in the center, and then I'm taking candy apple and putting it around the edges. You can use the rock and roll method with this, but using the sponge daubers, it's a little more precise. And then you have to work quickly, but before you stamp down, you huff on it, just breathe on it, and it will re-moisten the ink before you actually stamp it down. So I decided this one was a little too dark, so I went and got some peach, and forgot to clean my stamp off there. So with this one, I'm going to go ahead and ink the whole stamp up with peach, and then I'm going to kind of do the rock and roll it around and get some ink on there. And that's smoothie. And then I'm going to go in with my sponge dauber and kind of touch things up. I'm kind of swiping a little bit, not just daubing and pouncing. I'm kind of swiping with my sponge dauber to kind of give it a more natural look for those flower petals. So we're getting there. So I'm just playing around right now and just trying out a bunch of different colors to see the way if I like the color combinations. So this time I am, instead of doing rock and roll, I started out with just using my sponge dauber, and I was swiping it along. And that one's looking good. Okay, so let's try another stamp with some other colors. So now I'm going to try lemonade and candy apple and a different stamp. So I'm going to ink that up, and then I'm going to go in with my sponge dauber and swipe along the edges of the petals. Instead of pouncing, I'm swiping. I'll moisten it and stamp it down. We're getting there. I'm thinking that lemonade is just a little too bright, so I brought in my canary, and I'm going to try it again with canary. So I'm going to ink that one up and then swipe with candy apple. And I'm kind of letting the colors mix together as I'm swiping so that I get the canary to kind of an orange with candy apple on the edges. Okay, we're getting there. Get that one all cleaned up. So let's try some other colors. We'll bring in some smoothie and a different stamp. So I'm going to ink that up in canary and then use smoothie on the edges of the petals. And then I'll try another one. And this one I'm going to use some peach, and I'm going to ink that up all the way, and then I'm going to use some lemonade on the edges of the petals. Okay, so I continued to play around and I made a whole bunch of them. So now let's make the stems and the leaves for our flower. So I'm using green apple and sweet leaf. And I thought I was going to use sponge daubers to do some blending here, but, well, you'll see what I do. I just went direct to paper. So I'm just going to stamp those out, just to see. And that's a little leaf for the stem. And then I'll get another stem down in sweet leaf. Okay. Now I need to bring my flowers back in. And I'm going to stamp the centers in black. So there's stamps that match up to each of the flower shapes. So you can put the black centers to your poppy. So I'll show you a couple on camera and then I'll fill the rest in off camera. It's a forgiving stamp. You don't have to be exact as to where you place it. Okay, now the sentiment is Happy Mother's Day from that the May stamp of the month. So I've put them all in my block and I'm stamping that out in black ink on white daisy. And then off camera I trimmed it down so that it would fit the front of my card. So I'm going to fussy cut a flower just to show you. The trick to fussy cutting is to hold your scissors open and don't move your scissors back and forth as far as the handle part goes. You want to move your cardstock around, and that way you'll get a smoother edge and it's not quite so hard on your hands. You don't cramp up and start hurting after you do a gazillion of them. So just hold your scissors and turn your cardstock. Okay, now off camera, I've cut out the rest of these. Let's start assembling our card. So I trimmed down the sentiment and then I flagged out the edges. I did all that by hand. So let's build our card. I've got a piece of black cardstock for the base and it's cut at an A2 size. It's 5 1/4 by 4 and 5.5 by 4 1/4. And I'm just going to glue that down with the broad tip glue pen. And then I've trimmed down this yellow piece to leave a border around the edges. And I'm just going to glue that direct to the black and just getting things layered in. So we'll get that down. And then before I put my panel down, I want to put my sentiment to make sure I have enough room for everything on my card front. So I'm going to pop that with some thin foam tape. It's going to be a simple card, not a lot of embellishments. It's mostly stamp shapes and cardstock, but very bright and cheerful. So I'll get that down. Now this is craft foam that I got from Amazon, and it's the super thin kind. I think it's 2 millimeters. That's from Doris is the brand. And I'm just gluing that down with tombow to my mix-in pattern paper. and using the wet glue, you have a little time to kind of shift things around to make sure you've got it exactly where you want it. Now, this is a piece of green apple cardstock that I've cut with these stitched rectangles, and I've cut two. I've cut one in white daisy and one in green apple, and I'm just layering them, and I'm using the aqua tombow to layer them together just to give a little extra dimension. So I'm just layering all those pieces together, and now I'm just going to lay my flowers out on my card front to kind of get an idea of where I want everything to go before I start gluing. Okay, I think I'm liking that. So I'm just going to glue the stems down with aqua tombow, and then I'm going to fast forward. I popped all of the poppies with thin foam tape before I adhered them to the front of my card, and then I'll add that leaf to my stem to kind of fill it out a little bit. We'll tuck that in there. Okay, so now, because I need a little shimmer, all my cards need to have a little bling and shimmer. So I've got the black shimmer brush, and I'm just kind of painting over the black to give it a little more shimmer there and interest. And then I'll go over a few of the colored areas with clear with the shimmer brush. And I'm just painting it on. Shake these guys up so that all that shimmery goodness comes out in the brush. And be careful when you squeeze that barrel, because it can come rushing out. So if it needs to be squeezed, I like to do it on scratch paper. And I'm just kind of picking a few areas. I'm not putting shimmer over the entire image, just sections of the colored areas. So there's my card. I appreciate you watching my video today. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, please hit subscribe. And if you like what you see, hit the thumbs up button too. I'll make a list of all the supplies in the description below. And thanks for watching.